Ahoy, crypto pirates! Welcome back to another episode of Discourse Syndicate. I am actually just double checking, make sure my audio is working, because sometimes it likes to default to a different microphone that I do not have plugged in right now, which is crazy. It does that, but it's good to see you guys. Until we find some actual worthwhile guests that are worth the interview format, for now we're just kind of just letting the Cutthroats and the Hexicans on that would like to talk. I'd love to have any of you guys on. Let me know. You can either DM me in Telegraph, or I can even probably send type it in the message, the link. With me right now, I happen to have another Cutthroat Hexican pirate that loves to come on quite a bit. We love to have him. Fun and Jim.
Hair do right now. You know, I got a Brillo pad up here.
That's why you need one of these, man.
I need a specialized cap. I got some level of permission from Richard to start using some semi close to Hex logos, and I'm getting those printed now.
Cool. Cool, man. Well, I want to do some house cleaning here first. Hexican Sweat, Real Spike, Blaster Master, Children of the Grave, One Hexy Mofo, Lights Out. It's good to see you guys. You guys are always in here, always representing. So we're happy to have you guys. Just wanted to give a giant shout out to you guys. One of the most generous communities. What looks like we already have 89 people. Plus, we're being hosted by Hexologist. It's a great start for a show. Your Captain RG3 will be here shortly. He's driving back from Santa Barbara, and it was taking a little longer to get home. So he asked if I wouldn't mind starting this and getting this all up and going for you guys. Balliet Brand, thank you, sir, for the diamond. Blaster Master Lemons, I appreciate you, man. Hector the Protector with the lemons and ice creams. You guys are great. Soy Boss, I like that. Soy Boss. Soy Boss, I don't know if that's always been your name, and you're a regular Hexican, or if you're rather new to this stream, but we are glad to have you. Soy Boss, I love that. Well, at least you're the boss of Soy Boys, because it's not really the community for Soy Boys here. So what have you been up to, man? I know you and I've talked earlier today, and life is crazy, man. It's hard to not be busy.
Well, it's been, you know, like it's been an emotional roller coaster over the course of 2020. And first, I think it was like the stop and see what's going on with the world, because it all seems to go crazy. Then it was like the political fallout or whatever, and the, you know, what's going to happen as far as the United States and so forth with the politics, and staying out of that topic. But you know, the shutdown, I think, has made people contemplate their future when they were just kind of just moseying along, either as employees or as business people. And now just about the entire planet has had this awareness. And I think there's a lot of pivoting toward, hey, where can I get ROI on my money? Where can I put something that's, you know, safe? And what does safe mean? Like, is it based on code and math? Is it based on, you know, the elemental property of a metal? Is it based on what kind of fortress can I ride the storm out through, like real estate and things like that? So I've seen a lot of people throwing money, whether it's recently come into because of the PPP and EIDL and all these different loan programs and such going on from just about every nation. And I'm starting to really pay attention a lot more to where that flows. So I think it's going to be an exciting year in 2021. Actually, I was earlier in the year more apprehensive, and over the past 30 to 45 days, not just because of Hex and it's coming closer to the end of its adoption phase, or not adoption, it's on-ramping phase, or whatever we would call this first year, not just because of Hex and the excitement that's coming with that, but really opportunities are everywhere. There's no better chance than 2021 for you to go from being $50,000 a year income to $1 million a year income if you focus.
I agree. The opportunities are there, and that's especially when there's turmoil and when markets dip. With the right opportunity and just being aware of the opportunity, man, that's when fortunes are made. So wealth transfers happen every time markets change. And it's no different from 2008. Obviously, the circumstances, the events themselves may be different from 2008. It may not be a housing bubble that causes it this time, but tell you what, man, there's a lot of people that came out millionaires on the other side. So the opportunities are there if you're willing to work for them and you're willing to look for them, keep an eye open for them, and then be willing to take the risk when you do see them, when you do spot them. So I'm very much the entrepreneurial, risk adverse type of person. And my wife is constantly saying, whoa, 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 calm down, slow down, calm down, slow down. And it's, we make a great pair, but sometimes I have to get her to see like, no. We got to strike while the iron's hot. And now's that time. So
it's a great partnership when you have, that play, again, between man and woman, husband, wife, partners in business or whatever you want to say. It's good when you have a balance of, here's this position. If it has some sense of logic to it, then most people will listen to it. Doesn't matter your gender or what position you are in a partnership. But it's nice to have that sounding board. It's nice to have that, I don't want to even call it risk taking. I want to say that risk versus reward. I think that's a little bit different way of saying what you're talking about. Here's the opportunity. Here's the time to strike. And if you're basing your fortune and future on the actions of someone else, I've never been comfortable with that, ever, right? So this is I think this is gonna be the era of the entrepreneur, the person that starts out similar to what we've talked about in the past, like a Robert Kiyosaki personality. They started dead broke, and they started, as an ex-military Marine. He was a Marine. And so everybody that you look at that's some kind of example of success, whether it's Elon Musk, Steve Jobs, we have all these pseudo rags to riches kinds of stories. And we have ones that people are born into a family that basically just taught them the principles. And whether that's a good start or whatever you want to call it, the principles led to them becoming, world influencers, whether it's through money or politics or whatever. So I don't think there's a better opportunity than Q4 2020, which is now, to get going, to get started. And even with you hosting this thing on the behalf of RG3, I keep wondering when this Kinetics program is going to begin. When's that batch going to start up?
Man, I'm so busy trying to run 2 agencies right now, and we just hired somebody in one of the agencies, so that's taken a lot off my plate. I could hire probably 4 agents and 3 more CSRs, and if they were the right people, they would definitely be more productive than me just working on my own. But finding the right people, man, it's hard. Finding people that are self-motivated, that want to build something. I'm like, I will give you ownership in this company, and still just not enough people want to put the effort in. But I really need to buy my time back. I need to get out of my own way. I need to put the right people in place. I need to put the right systems in place. And so my wife and I are working pretty hard. We went and looked at another house today. We're working pretty hard trying to leverage real estate as our passive income to get our passive income to a level, leveraging other people's money and the bank's money to essentially fund our lifestyle, and then not be able to, or not have to take anything out of the business, and roll that all right back into new systems and new people and getting the right people in place. Because I know with digital market, I've been studying digital marketing for 3 years now. I've been looking at systems. I'm looking at how I can integrate it with my industry, because my industry is a industry of dinosaurs that aren't moving anywhere. And I'm like, man, now is the right time to just take advantage of everyone. All the old agents still do things the same way. The systems that these carriers use are outdated. I mean, multi-billion-dollar companies, and you're like, this is the system you guys use for us to do our rating and to make changes and to add and remove things. And so I'm just looking for an opportunity to get out of my own way so I can scale this up. And then really it's just a matter of time, because the only time I really have, and maybe Brizology actually and I were talking very shortly. We haven't had a long discussion on it yet, but we're thinking, doing possibly a show of our own, maybe doing a morning show for the Europeans. There's just a lot going on, and we'd have to do that early in the morning, because being a family man and running a business, 3 businesses all day long, and then coming home, the wife gets on me, that pull back again. that you've got 3 kids and you got a 4th on the way, and you need to be a present father at the same time. So trying to balance all of the work, play, and personally, I like working is my play, but it does tend to overshadow the other things going on in my life, including being a father. so it's good to have my wife there to pull back the reins and remind me, hey, call me late at night when I'm still at work. Hey, your kids miss you, come home. So
yeah.
It's nice to have that, but trust me, there's nothing I would like more than to start my own show. I've got a notebook full of ideas of things that I'd like to talk about, and crypto is only a percentage of it. So,
well, that's what I keep commenting on recently on these programs, on these streams, is they can go hours and hours and hours, and it's great because it's kind of like a social catch up and things like that for both the community and the individuals that are broadcasting. But there are more efficient ways that you can create the content in a social context like that. But then if you actually hire through Fiverr or through Upwork, and you get someone that's actually pretty useful. There's a lot of people in Ukraine, a lot of people in Belarus, things like that, that are fully competent English speakers, but their cost to edit down and parse that down into a 3-hour stream can become a 45 minutes worth of nicely edited, nicely bullet point kind of content. And the rise right now, even though YouTube is dominating the video platforms, the real rise right now is podcasts. Podcasts are generating massive income because people are still commuting, and they're going to resume a commuting lifestyle most likely. And the podcast thing where you can be listening to something while you're cooking dinner, you don't have that visual engagement that's necessary. Podcasts are really on the rise, and things like Litecoin doing his Anchor FM. When you find an aggregator that basically can distribute to 10 or 12 different platforms, that's leverage it as well. That's leveraging your original IP or intellectual property, your original content, and then it's getting it packaged for these different medium platforms and through like an editor. And then the editor, once that's available to you, it's just a distribution. And that stuff, I think that's where you can really multiply your time and your influence, because everybody needs to be a brand. You obviously have an expertise in insurance products as far as US based, and then also as far as real estate and understanding leverage of finance and using other people's money basically to create cash flow. So I think that this is the interesting thing is HEX has a higher concentration than I've ever seen of people that have had successful businesses. And then in addition to their asset classes would be maybe crypto. And out of the crypto, the one that they're hitting on is really the HEX community, because there's so much value you get from just passive participation in the community, much less than in the product. Absolutely. And as much as I love HEX and it's the product, in fact, I was supposed to have a guy tonight, put a pretty sizable chunk through the AA, and I'm excited for that. And I love the passive income that comes with the referrals that way too. But to me, that's not the end all be all. And if HEX fails, I'm on my way to being a decamillionaire as it is now, and with or without HEX, it's going to happen. But it'll happen a lot sooner with HEX if it does what we think it does, and with the amount of brains we have in this community, I think it's just an inevitable amount of time that has to go by before it becomes an inevitability. So I'm really excited about that, and hopefully it can become that passive income that allows me to dump all my resources from the business itself back into the business. So I'm really excited about that. So yeah. And another thing is you're doing it smartly. I'm doing it smartly. There's a lot of people that don't ever announce it because they're just, in the crypto field, you don't want to dox yourself as much as if you said, hey, I'm in a certain industry and I'm going on LinkedIn, you're trying to network like crazy and you're giving out a lot of information. But for some reason, with the crypto sphere, we are obviously more cautious about that release. But it's interesting that, the people that are the most successful in the world have nothing to do with falling into money, nothing to do with winning a lottery or even speculating and buying low and then selling high. Almost nobody becomes truly wealthy through buying low and selling high, even in HEX. Buy low, sell high is rare. very rare to become financially independent. That's very, very rare. The investor class, usually they're pretty good. They're rarely they're like the long-term holding of something and have that yield happen. But again, they're counting on the efforts of others. They're counting on good management of that company, good creation of new products that the public wants to pay for, right? So price discovery and things like that, about keeping up with the Joneses in tech or things like that, whatever. But people that run their finances through their company, like through your LLC, so much of your things that you're right now taking a paycheck and then converting after you pay your taxes and things like that, or gets withdrawn before it ever hits your bank account. Then out of that, you're paying for a lot of your monthly overhead of living, your housing, your transportation, the food that you eat, your insurance. There's a lot of that stuff that if you just run a business, and it doesn't even have to be a profitable business, you'll be more profitable if you route things through your company and follow all the laws and all the rules and learn the game, so to speak, of being an enterprise versus an individual. I think that's what, regardless of what HEX does, I hope that the community that watches these videos in hindsight, this will be basically memorialized on these platforms. And if they look at these videos in the future and they say, hey, I think I will go back to that video. I wonder what I could have learned out of that, hour and a half stream on the 23rd of September. What did they talk about that I never caught back then? I think you can just find so many nuggets you can dig out of this community that will make you rich, will make you wealthy.
I agree with that. I agree. And so because I've got a real life outside of crypto, there's obviously no project that I'm more on fire for than HEX, but I'm not hoping it's my lottery ticket. Yeah. And so I continue to build and I continue to move forward, and I recommend the rest of you guys do that too. And it's one thing I try to teach my kids is don't let the school train you to be an employee. It's time for you have to create something yourself. If you want real value and you want real wealth, you have to create something that provides value in the marketplace to others, that others are willing to give you their money. And what's neat about social media and content and creators is that those who give away the most information away for free are the ones that people are willing to pay for the information from later. So give your best information away free, and then come back. It's Gary Vee has that book. What was it? Jab, yep. Jab, jab, right hook. And so Absolutely. He talks about exactly that. Give all your value away. Give it all away. Give it all away. Give everything that has to do with your industry, all the trade secrets, just give that away. And then once you've given away so much value, when you come back and say, hey, I've got this project, I've got this course, I've got this whatever, and I'm asking that you buy it from me, people will already look at you as the expert, and they'll come pay for something that they probably could have found, but may have taken them hours to scrub through the internet to find the same information anyway. But you've given them so much value up to that point. It's almost as if they feel like they owe you for the new information that you're presenting to them, and they're willing to do it. So I recommend you guys out there build something. Go build something. I don't care if you're starting a YouTube channel, if you're creating a following on Twitter, on Facebook, or a digital marketing company, something of that. It doesn't even matter. I don't care if it's freaking brick and mortar retail. I think you're a moron to do that, but because I think Amazon's coming for your head. But there's just, if you have been doing anything for any number of years, I'd say 5 years or greater, there's a good chance you probably know that industry pretty well. And there's information within that industry that you could probably sell to somebody, or at least share with someone for free and create a following with.
That's incredibly wise. Two people I can think of when you're talking about Gary Vee, my friend Kirill, he's a Ukrainian guy. He came he went independent, like emancipated himself when he was like 14 or 15. So he'd been living as a digital nomad, traveling around the world and things like that for like 7 or 8 years. He's like 24. And he was living in Los Angeles. He used to be a tenant of mine. I used to have an accelerator in Palo Alto, which was basically just a house that had like 15 bunk beds, and then it had a common office space, then it had a common social space. And he was a tenant in that space. for like maybe 3 or 4 months. So we made friends in 2015 or 16, somewhere in there. Anyways, he got into the Amazon FBA game with his father to come up with a product and, do the whole thing about drop shipping and things like that. Because of that, he got, I think it's like an invitation or something to where Gary Vee was dropping these K-Swiss shoes. They were a brand that was
the Gary Supremes. Vee.
Yeah. So he got an invitation to that. I went with him to that or whatever. So I never spoke directly with Gary Vee, but I was like 30 feet, 40 feet or whatever. And then Kirill, because he had won 2 pairs of those shoes, him and his girlfriend at the time had gotten 2 pairs of those shoes because of some kind of submission thing or whatever. So he got 2 pairs of shoes for free, and he got to ask questions of Gary Vee. And that's exactly what you're talking about. I don't know if Jab Jab had come out yet as far as the book, but it's exactly right. He's talking about what can I do? And he says, give away value. If you give away value because you have a knowledge base and you give away value, you will build audience. And if you give away that value in something that can be leverage your communication, like YouTube channel, Instagram, stories, all these things like that, people can look at that in the future. They'll look backward and they'll still find your old content reinforcing their belief that you have value to share. So with him, but a better example is my friend Reezy that lives, he lives about 40 miles south of me in at least California, in Santa Cruz, California. And he dropped out of a school, I think in 9th grade. He had a kid on the way. I mean, him and his girlfriend got married, but they had a kid at 9th or 10th grade. And he was always kind of like, it was kind of like he was thrown into the fire, like, hey, how am I going to support this new family or whatever? And he started with just buying and selling on eBay because that was something he could do as a 15 or 16-year-old. And he would go buy stuff at garage sales and things like that and then flip it onto eBay. And he was hustling it pretty good. And then when Amazon FBA became more popularized and he started to learn all of the ins and outs of it, he dominates. He started buying and selling Nike and Adidas and shoes directly from the outlets, right?
Really? From the outlets or like from an actual distributor?
Yeah. So every year right now, he sells about $700,000 or $800,000 worth of tennis shoes that he goes and picks up at the local stores in the Bay Area and just throws into the Amazon warehouse. So he started doing all this stuff. And then Gary Vee, somebody referred or talked to Gary Vee during one of his programs, one of his daily programs, and said, have you heard about this kid that's selling tennis shoes? And, like Gary Vee's like, this guy's like selling like 700,000. That's a fucking hustler. I mean,
I love it.
Reezy got to meet his hero, which is really Gary Vee, who he'd learned from in the first place. So anyway, that has the curiosity, you should really study what Gary Vee has to say. He's got great value to communicate.
I agree. I'm arguing with our good old captain here. He's taking longer. I got to run here pretty quick. So I'm like, any of you guys that are watching and have a setup and want to come on the show and join Gary for just a short period of time, I might have to run just to go pick up a kid from extracurriculars real quick. I'm going to try to hold on as long as I can, still waiting for a text from him. But he and I are calling each other dirty ass names right now via text. So if anyone wonders, why is he not paying attention to the stream? It's because I'm arguing with RG3 right now. So.
Well, I don't see I'll have to look at the Dlive. Where are the comments coming from? Because I don't really see all of them except for the private one on StreamYard. You go to YouTube or you see everything?
No, I've got an extra window open with Dlive. So Blaster Master 7C6, total boomer. Tenny shoes, LOL, boomer. So
if anybody wants to ask any questions, I mean, while you're bitching back and forth with RG, anybody wants to ask any questions about businessy things, tax things, get money things for your enterprise things, then I'll answer those.
Yeah, absolutely. There's so many different hustles out there, man, to build something with. I mean, there's a lot of shiny objects. The problem is not enough people. There's a lot of people that have the entrepreneurial spirit, but they jump around. They don't focus on one until it works. They start doing something, they realize, oh, maybe something else will be easier. Or, oh, wait, there's this other new shiny object. And I remember 2016, 2017, everyone and their mom had an Amazon FBA course, how to make money doing Amazon FBA. And they were making 10 times as much selling the courses than they were actually selling on Amazon. So you got to be careful of the fake gurus too, just like you do in the crypto space. So,
well, that's what I was trying to get at is, just because you see it as a glitzy thing and a click funnel that sells you to buy a course, that doesn't mean that they're communicating value. What have they given away? I mean, if the first time you're hearing about them is all of the promotion about, you know, this is what you'll learn after you buy, this is what you'll learn after you buy, here's the car that I have and the house I have, but this is what you'll learn after I buy. I don't really trust that stuff. You look at the value that Richard's given away over the past several years. If you look at his videos from 3 years ago, you look at the value that people like Gary Vee or even Rich Dad Poor Dad stuff. There's just so much content that you can learn for free from these platforms of education like YouTube and different podcasts and stuff. Bigger Pockets, if anybody has anything to do with real estate, they should look at things like biggerpockets.com or there's all kinds of resources.
Yeah, I watch pretty much everything that comes out on the Bigger Pockets. I don't watch the Rookie Show. Yeah. I think I mean there's some good information there, but I don't watch their Rookie Show, and I don't watch their some of the other specialty shows that they have. But I watch every episode of the original real estate investing show with David Green and Beardy Brandon, and then I watch everything. I watch the with the Jay Scott and Carol Scott, the business podcast. Yeah. And every now and then I'll watch the Mindy Jensen and what's the other guy's name? I should know it. They do the money podcast and I'll watch that, but it's the first two are really the important ones, the real estate and the business. The one I've gotten such brilliant gems from the business podcast that I'm like, because it's not centered specifically on real estate. So some of the systems that I've come up with, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's golden, and that'll work in my industry. So I think it's definitely worth a listen just to hear what other ideas people have. And as much as I love like Robert Kiyosaki's books and stuff, there's not enough. There's too much ponder about what you could do and not enough, hey, this thing works and this thing works and this thing works. And you just got to do which of these things you like to do. And there's not enough of that. So
he doesn't give you real technical. He gives you like overarching like themes.
Yes.
And that's really what his marketing really is about, is like themes and mindset. But yeah, the actual here's like instructables. Here's what you can do next. There's a lot of people, and again, inside this community, if anybody wants to reach out to specifics, I know a lot of people. And if you say, I'm interested in this exact niche, and it's not just a tire kicking kind of situation where people just want to, they just want to, I wouldn't say waste time, but they're just kind of curious because they're that, how does it work? But I'm never really going to act on it. Then don't bother people that are already acting on it. I mean, if you're looking to actually be in the trenches and actually make money with something, there's a specialist inside of this community for sure. You tapped. They just, again, you don't take the wind out of their sails just because you're curious on how they're doing it, and then you're going to be one of the 80% that never do shit with knowledge that you get. I did want to address something that I've seen pop up in the threads a few times, and I see it going on again inside of the chat on the Discourse Syndicate now. I want to bring up this this thing that Kyle has talked about. It's been talked about in the past. It was pitched probably 2 years ago before Hex went live. And it's the concept of, do you want tools to basically break the game theory of a stake? Do you want a stake that is tradable? Meaning, and I see this going on right now. It's going on right now in the chat, talking about, oh, if this developers make this thing tradable, then it's going to be, necessary. It's going to bring value. It's going to make it more easy to onboard people because they can get out of a stake by selling their stake. I don't believe that that's true. I think that you actually break the not just the commitment to the speculative stickiness, but if you know that you can get out of the contract without effectively paying a penalty, why would you do anything less than a 555 stake? And if you're going to do a 5-5-5 stake and then you're going to trade it thinking that it's going to have some percentage of value because you're giving it to someone else, some other entity is going to lend against it, some other entity is going to buy you out, you're going to get pittance because you don't really have commitment. And what I say that when, if you say, I'm going to sell this house that I've never painted or fixed up, but I'm going to sell it for the value of its future, what is that called? After rehab value, right? It's post rehab value. I'm going to say it's worth, the 70% loan to value after rehab is worth X. But before I do any of the rehab or investment of my own skin in the game, then I want to get, close to that price. I think that even the idea of developers breaking that is one, not worthy. Two, I think speculation wise that big bag holders would probably stop that from happening. And I don't think that it's something that creates value because it suddenly becomes tradable as a derivative. That's my opinion. What are your thoughts?
Well, my only caveat to that is being able to temporarily use it as collateral for say a real estate loan with the bank. So if there was a way, so I guess it's my only caveat that I can think of off the top of my head. But if I could use it as collateral and I have to give it to the bank, give them physical possession for a short period of time until I can either refinance out of it or I can come up with more equity in the property to get my collateral back, then that would be the only benefit I could really see it playing in your favor, to be able to transfer stakes.
Well, what I can see is you can set up if you're a big enough bag holder, big enough. Like if you're a couple $1,000 worth, you're not going to get this kind of thing. But if you're a big enough bag holder, then I could see a contract, a KYC contract, not some kind of, you go to this web portal, you click 3 buttons of a MetaMask, and then now you have some other token that you're trading or exchanging for dollar or off ramping. I don't think that that's really going to be allowed or enabled or possible. Maybe somehow it does, but I think that you're actually fucking around with breaking the game theory that makes Hex valuable in the first place. So I'm not really supportive of that, even as a pursuit. However, you can sign a contract if you're KYC and you're going to go to something like a Celsius platform or something like that. And you're going to say, hey, the value of my stake is my EES today, minus 30% off the top. So if you have your EES, then you have your tokens, and your tokens, as far as a lendable, because even on Celsius, if you're going to take money out like a loan against ETH or any other kind of like Nexo or something like that, you're going to take loan against a quote unquote value as collateral. It still moves. If the ETH drops in value, they will ask you to recollateralize, and you will have to bring up your ratio. So I think that they often will do like 70%. Maybe, and then, like I said, if it drops significantly, you have to bring more collateral to the table. You have to make them reasonably whole. And I'll talk about that when it comes to real estate if we get to that point in a minute. But that's basically a normal sort of thing. So I could see that the EES value minus 30% might be a lendable amount of money. But if you're going to say, oh, I have this 15-year stake and in 10 years, the speculation is that it'll be worth $10 million. Dude, you're going to get pittance, one, because I don't think anybody would take that as a loan. Even if you could transfer it to them and say, oh, you can take over my risk and give me that value. You're still going to get pittance by comparison to what the real ROI would be. And I don't think you can straddle the fence by saying, I'm going to keep the keys. I'm going to share the keys with you if I ever fail to return the money, that's lent to me. I don't think by code that it should be possible. Hopefully it's not. And two, if I think it has a risk of breaking game theory as far as human action and value perception of a stake.
Yep, I agree. So my point to complement yours is that I think I do think ultimately it's probably a bad idea that you could transfer your stakes. And I think the biggest one is the underestimation of what its future value is going to be worth. So say you said this stake is going to be worth $10 million. You know, I expect that Hex is going to go to $1 in the next 10 years, and I've got a 5555 stake, and I'm going to 10x my principal by this time. And let's say you convince someone of that future value, and they bought your stake for $10 million. Well, I think if the Hex hits that price that you thought it was, I think you're still underestimating your performance on that. So at 80x's, you have $1 million Quattro Cinco stake, and it becomes 80 million, and you sold it for 10 million. I see there being issues with people cheating themselves of future value too. So that is the thing that would scare me, that people would underestimate. And here's the problem: we're not going to know until the first Quattro Cinco stake ends after big payday. Yeah. So November 20th, someone starts a Quattro Cinco stake. We won't know for 15 years what that really looks like.
Well, again, the design of Hex and the thought process that Richard and others put into, one, to code the actions and the carrot and the stick, right? And, I see a lot of like rumblings and effort and, conversation and things like that about how can we get around and make this a tradable thing. Like we go against the don't be a trader. The benefit is that you're going to have a one-time stake and one-time unstake in stake kind of action. That's why your gas price is going to be less than other kinds of tokens like Soshi and all this other kind of crap, right? So we're trying to fight against trading, try to reward people for holding and long-term investing, and making price performance rise because of that staking action, plus the ROI to the people that are part of a staking pool. So to try to basically go against the entire intention and design, it seems silly. I mean, if you want to trade something else. There's plenty of ways to trade something else. If you just want access to cash, I help people all the time get, access to cash that has no collateral, zero collateral. I mean, why would you want to risk something that might have an 80x and might be one of the best performances in the crypto, which is crypto as in itself is one of the best returns potentials of an asset class. So I don't understand why people are really trying to fuck themselves over. I see a lot of conversation that it looks like the agenda is, how can I possibly get this code to fuck me over? I don't get it.
Yeah, I think that's the wrong way to think about this. And even like one of the comments in here is, what will happen in 5, 10, 15 years? Will Hex still be relevant? And I think, yeah, you've got a closed, immutable code that continues to work the way that it was intended to do so. And unless there's some fatal error that the two coding audits didn't come up with, that they didn't find, that they didn't catch along with the development team, that is really the only thing that could go wrong, I think, at this point in time. Because as long as the Ethereum substrate continues and the Hex code continues to work as it's been programmed to do, and there's no backdoors to change that, then I don't think that there's anything that can, I don't think there's any reason to worry about that.
Yeah, I mean, again, whether people have long-term faith in Ethereum or Bitcoin or any other substrata, I like the fact that it is a vehicle, and that vehicle can be put on different roads. This is a smart contract. Smart contracts seem to be catching popularity in general, knowledge about from the general public, not just people that are in crypto. They hear the phrase smart contract and they're starting to understand it better as it develops. I have, like I said, different lawyers and things like that their idea of a smart contract is both positive and a threat, because how do you, if it's in code in a cyber world, it's going to execute. Whether that translates to a human-based world or not may be arguable, because you still have laws and you have entities that basically determine who has ownership and all these other things that are mitigators or interferences. So if somebody wanted to basically transact a share, a staked pool, a stake, just form an LLC, place the ownership into that LLC, have the legal contract that the LLC holds the value, not you. and then you can get money against the LLC and against the collateral that it owns. So you can show a lot of those things to different lenders. There's all kinds of ways to get money. I mean, getting money really isn't hard, honestly. Getting capital, at least. It just depends on what you're going to deploy that. What you're going to do with that.
Yeah, and that was one thing that these guys in the chat were talking about. They wanted to understand, not necessarily the tax breaks, but also the ways to structure.
Yeah, I mean, it becomes just like a bank account. It's an account, just like a bank account. It just becomes an asset of the company. And then if you're in a tax-friendly jurisdiction, your taxes would be lower. If you structure it as a business, I think I might have told you, I have clients that pay me to do certain things, and then I have renters and tenants that pay me in dollar as well. And more over the past few months, I've been paying people that I owe money to, whether it's a dentist or whatever. I pay them, but I was paying them in credit card or in dollar or whatever. And most recently, I've been paying them in HEX, and then in the same action, converting them to USDC and having that be in their Coinbase account so that they can exit out. And I overpay them in HEX, which is the dollar value that they basically extract. So they are overpaid on what I owe them. And similarly, whenever I am owed dollar by a client or by a tenant, then I'm effectively offering them a discount if they pay in HEX. And I walk them through how they can pay in HEX, and they get that effective dollar discount. So they have the net effect for them is less dollars came out. Once they've learned the first month on how to do it, then the subsequent months, they have a reduction also in their cost in subsequent months. So every month that they pay rent, their rent is lowered. And on net, I think that on average, they're averaging like $4,000 per year that they're saving by paying me in HEX instead of paying me in dollar. Now I have a lot more bookkeeping that I have to do. I have to keep track of all these things, and I have a CPA that specializes in doing that. But what I also do is the bills are all paid on what I owe from mortgages and things like that, as far as property management, overheads and things like that of a company. But anything that would be excess that would normally distribute to me as owner of the company and would be considered my income, I'm being very frugal. I'm eating ramen and living a simple life. But instead, that money that would have been just toward my lifestyle now, I'm staking. So the income never actually distributes to me. The entity continues to have the access to the income in HEX form. And then I'm staking out for a minimum of a year. So it compounds enough to more than make up for the discount that I gave in dollar. You see what I'm saying?
Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah. So people are smart about stuff, and they try to say, hey, how can I learn this stuff? How can it be? What should I do as far as an entity? What jurisdiction am I in? And things like that. There are people that can help you with that kind of thing if you're serious about it. If you're just a tire kicker and just wanting general information, then pay attention to the YouTube channels that people are putting out for free, because there's all kinds of, I learned all this stuff from other people that knew this stuff before me, and you can execute on it.
I 100% agree with that. If you really want those answers, there are people out there. What's the book by Tom Wheelwright, which is Robert Kiyosaki's accountant? Gosh, I can't remember the name of it, but essentially he explains it very clearly if you read the book, and I can't remember the name of the title off the top of my head, but he discusses that
how to build wealth permanently. His book is called Tax-Free Wealth. Tax-Free Wealth.
That's right. Tax-free wealth. So the thing that he talks about is that the tax code is just a list of incentives of what the government wants you to provide. They want you to provide housing for people. They want you to provide business or employment opportunities for people, because those employment, it's not the business owners that end up paying the taxes. It's the employees. You guys ever seen your paychecks? You ever see that Medicare and Social Security and the payroll taxes for both your state and federal coming out of those payroll taxes? That's why they want business owners to employ people. So if you're the business owner, you can get away with anywhere between 0 and 20% tax on your earnings, on your profits, not just your earnings, but your profits themselves, and leave the bag to your employees to pay the majority of the taxes. So all a tax code is a list of incentives of what the government wants you to accomplish. So rather than trying to hide it and trying to fight it, you just go along with it. And that's how you and if you listen to Robert Kiyosaki, he says it all the time, but taxes are your number one expense.
Yeah.
So that's right there. If you guys are interested, if you're serious, go read that book, Tax Free Wealth.
Yeah, it's called, the full title, if you look up it on Amazon, is Tax-Free, Tax-Free Wealth, How to Build Massive Wealth. And again, it's Tom Wheelwright. He's a CPA for Rich Dad Poor Dad guy. Yep,
absolutely. So there's the resources are out there. There's different ways you can create trust, and if you're serious with that, go talk to an attorney.
Yeah.
That's all I have to say. I'm not going to discuss all of that with everybody here, but there's a lot of ways to do that. So,
absolutely. I mean, again, if their livelihood is based on knowing the laws, knowing the tax codes, why would you try to sort that stuff out yourself? I mean, find someone that has good referrals and good recommendations, and do all your due diligence about who you choose as a professional in your life. But if you are in love with a particular state, a particular city, and that's where your network and your family, and you really never want to move, then understand the laws and the tax benefit or challenges of making that choice of that state or of that location. You can relocate in the future. You can move wealth in the future. I see people talk about that too. They say, oh, well, when it's worth something, then I'll worry about the taxes. You're making a foolish statement when you say something like that. You should look at your exit point, no matter what you're doing. I mean, if you're going to say, I'm going to have a pension, you're making a decision about your exit point. You say you're going to have a business, you're going to say, well, I want cash flow that provides something, or I can transfer to my family in the future, and I no longer have to work. I mean, you always should be looking at your exit point, and taxes is just a big consideration for that.
100%. Absolutely. So if you can get rid of your biggest expense and you can limit your liabilities and limit your risk, why wouldn't you take those steps? And why wouldn't you consult with people who know how to do that? That's one thing that, I learned this the hard way. And then I heard not long after, I heard Robert Kiyosaki say it, but you don't succeed in this world by yourself. Mm-hmm. You have to have the team. You have to have a team around you. And he talks about how in school, they teach you got to know all the answers. You got to do it all yourself. But you get into the real world and you find out that's not true at all. But you can't work with a team on a test in school because they expect you to know all the answers. So they want you to know everything up front. But so they consider that cheating in school. But in the real world, that's how real successful people get ahead. They understand what their strengths and weaknesses are, and they find people with the opposite strengths and weaknesses. And you guys can really help each other in that way. So not all of us have time to sit around and contemplate the different theoretical aspects of everything, which I think Richard does absolutely phenomenally. But not all of us have either the ability to do that, at least not to the depths that he can, or the octane to see it through. So it's nice when you've got a partner in the buddy system helping you work it out.
Yeah, I mean, again, he said something the other day that was kind of like a fuck you to the rest of the world. But he's like, what's it like to be on TeamWin? I was like, it's that's pretty awesome, actually,
Yeah.
TeamWin got this uni thing. TeamWin basically brought this adoption to DeFi exchanges or DEX exchange like Uniswap or whatever. TeamWin has been a pretty smart move. Again, a lot of people don't recognize that if you are in the staking class, if you had like a 20, 30, 40, 50x or whatever on the coin itself, that's all great because you bought the coin, on launch or, the first few months or whatever. And then you saw that big bump in like March or whatever, and you enjoyed that 118 and it came down to like 55 or whatever. But most people don't actually do the math to understand the real ROI that the staking class has had. If you're in the staking and you're getting 20%, 22%, 24% as this thing climbs, their ROI is higher is higher than your coin ROI.
Mm-hmm.
You know? So I think a lot of people aren't recognizing that math, you know.
Which I'm not sure if Internet Lurker's on here now. He was on earlier, but yep, you called me out on Monday's show. You talked as Randy and RG3 were talking. He said, "Yeah, one of my Buccaneers definitely didn't have enough money in his enough ETH in his wallet to cash out his uni tokens." Yep, you called it out. That was me. I was waiting for Ethereum to hit the wallet, still waiting for it, but fortunately, gas fees went low enough today that I could sell just enough uni for ETH that I was able to use that ETH that I sold the uni for to be able to sell the rest of the uni. So and then you guys were talking about on Monday, well, at least Randy and RG3 they were talking about having ETH in your wallet. Well, I did have ETH in my wallet. I had $150, but I had 3 wallets I had to claim from, and it cost me $50 per wallet to claim it. So I did. I had almost half an ETH in there, and it was gone by the time I claimed it all. So yeah, just going back to that Internet Lurker, you were 100% right. You called it out. It was me. So, but I do see the value of not just the price appreciation of the Hex coin versus the Unicoin, but also Unicoin. I almost sound like unicorn, but also the ROI from staking on it. So the return of more Hex coin on top of it. So, and I truly do see that.
Yeah, I mean, you have the benefit of, the double benefit of price appreciation. You'll suffer. I wouldn't even say suffer. If you are staked, it's almost like backseat of a car watching the driver. You're like, oh, but you don't feel the same threat when you're staked in the volatility. When you're driving, when you're actually in a position where should I buy the coin? Should I sell the coin? It's at a top, it's at a bottom, and you're still in that trading game. It's completely different than like watching the TV program about some horror show or about some lottery winner show. I mean, you're a little bit removed because you're like, oh, it doesn't really matter to me because I've got like 2 years before the first stake comes open anyway, or whatever it might be, right? So there's some of that emotional insulation that ends up happening that's I really appreciate. And then on the, it is kind of like this truth engine that hopefully we want out of our society. That when you say you're going to do something, I've grown up in a society for the most part in farming society, because it's a small enough community. Your word is your bond, way more than contract, way more than anything along those lines. Your word is your bond. Like if you say you're going to do something, you follow through on it because you have social repercussion. The community knows you. They know your family. They know your cousins and all these other types of things. So I grew up in a word is your bond kind of situation. And then in the military, similarly, your word is your bond. If you are taking an oath, if you're joining a platoon, if you're, going on a particular mission, you have certain roles that you're supposed to fill. And obviously, if you don't fill them, you might die and other people might die, right? So your word is your bond in that situation too. And when it comes up to step to the plate, then you should, or the consequences will be borne. So what I love about the Hex platform and the product is there are those reinforcements for, doing what you say you're going to do. There's a lot of people that have stayed out of staking because they don't really want to live up to a promise. Truthfully, they want to have that ultimate flexibility of in or out and straddle the fence. But I really like. I would bet that the collective value of the staking class that are staked, as far as their intellect and entrepreneurial drive and wealth outside of crypto, is far higher than the day trader, flipper back and forth, wishy-washy participant. Just in general, not disparaging other Hex holders, but I'm just saying that staking class is really exceptional compared to all other crypto products.
I agree. I think Hexikins have, especially some of the more affluent, well-to-do, entrepreneurial, or just at that stage in their lives, part of the game, that they've got other things going on. So no one wants to sit in front of and obviously, obviously we don't encourage trading because it's a great way to get wrecked. So how else are you going to hodl and earn more coins? Well, Hex cures this. Hex fixes this. And so while we continue to do our normal things in life, we're not wasting our whole day in front of a computer screen. We can still go out and build businesses. We can still go out and be entrepreneurial. We can still go out and serve others and provide value to the marketplace, all while earning at the same time. So, and Johnny Chaos does a great job of showing on his Twitter of him laying around outside, enjoying an iced tea or whatever else, and earning trustless interest all at the same time. So there really is no product that works as well or is as amazing as what Richard and his team have created with Hex.
Right. Is there anybody else who wants to jump on the stream, or is we're going to wait till RG3? Valley usually jumps on. I know he's been contributing through the stream.
Yeah, Randy, I just put the link in the chat. You guys are welcome to hop on. Yeah, I know you guys have a lot to add to. I got a lot of stuff, but I'm afraid I'll just deviate so far away from Hex that you'd have to. And Captain's not here to steer me back because I'm exhausted tonight, Randy. Thanks a lot, bro. Thanks, man. Thanks for leaving us hanging. I'm getting yelled at, or I'm about to get yelled at, since I wasn't supposed to be on the stream this long anyway. But but I would love to have more of you guys come join in on this conversation. I'd love for you guys to tell us kind of, or at least give us kind of an idea of what it is that you're doing in the real life, in your real life, and what value you're providing, and how that Hex product fits into that lifestyle, and why you chose Hex versus another coin. It'd be really neat to hear probably more of those stories that I'm sure we heard more of them, and I can recall a few, but I'd love to hear more from some of you guys that haven't been vocal before. So it'd be really neat to get you guys on here.
Hey, you might talk about, I mean, I don't want to talk about other products. Well, I guess I won't talk about it. I was going to say something about other ROI, but we'll talk about real estate or something else. Never mind. Let me walk that back.
Yeah. No worries, man. We can definitely talk about that at another time. Yeah, I mean,
conversation, even though this is Discourse, it's definitely Hex centric.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Hold on one second. All right, sorry, having to Mr. Mom it here for a second. Going back to so you guys can still talk about this one Hexy Mofo. If you can provide some, I'd love to have you on stream sometime. But if you could provide why you think trading stakes would be more of a boon than it would be a detriment to the project, let us know. Hexy Mofo wants to know more about accessing money without collateral.
Yeah, he has, as far as if it's my particular business, he has to be US based. So that would be a qualifier. And he can DM me if it's something specific. If he's basically US based, he doesn't have collateral and he doesn't have fucked up credit, and he has to comply with KYC, because banks aren't going to give $250,000 to people that they don't know, through a crypto transfer or something like that. So if they're looking for things that are money for relatively conventional purposes, like conventional business building, you want to support yourself while you develop a e-commerce platform. So some people, they stop their job, but they stop their job with a plan in mind. And they're like, man, if I only had 3 months where my housing and my bills and my support was there, whether it's through savings or through access to capital funding, that funding can kickstart someone to where they can go on a path of being independent. So I usually help people that are in transition from being employee into being independent as far as their own business, whatever their business wants to be, whatever they want to pursue. So I've helped people launch clothing lines. So they needed some money basically to get the staff that would do the production. They needed enough money to basically get raw materials. and they needed to basically quit their 9 to 5 so that they could oversee that as a business person, as a designer. So I've helped a designer become successful through that kind of capitalization. But when people are, if they're outside the United States, U.S. banks aren't going to give you money. If you're if you are shitty with your personal history, as far as you ran out on leases, you didn't pay your car and it got possessed, you didn't pay your credit cards or your light bill, you're really not going to get funded, not in this environment, as far as business funding. But anybody else that basically is looking for transition, or they're looking for capital and they have a place to utilize that capital, typically real estate is the best, because if you're going to flip a property, if you're going to basically renovate a property so that it becomes better cash flow, and you can present that property after it's the rent rolls are improved and after the property is improved itself, then you can get refinanced at super low interest rates for 30 years. So if you're like you believe the dollar is going to collapse in value, the best thing you could do to short the dollar is to have a 30-year mortgage on a cash flowing property. So I help people basically get capital to get the property to start with, rehab the property, add Airbnb or VRBO space to it, or make it maximize its cash flow, and then they will get refinanced. And when they're refinanced conventionally as real estate, then they can pull all that capital back out to restore their business funding and recycle and reuse that without having hard money costs and closing costs and things like that, like a hard money loan typically would be. So they can talk to me directly if they need to. That's why I have a website. But basically, it's anybody that has an entrepreneurial curiosity or drive, and funding is the only thing that's stopping them from being successful, is the funding part, then that funding part can be handled very easily.
Absolutely. And you can also get creative with deals too. But if you have that capital available to you and you're willing to go out and hit the streets a little bit, you can find people. I get these deals quite often, but part of it has to do with the fact that they're my clientele too. But a lot of them are willing, especially the aging population that doesn't want to deal with the rentals any longer. They're willing to owner finance them. So if all I got to do is come up with a small down payment, even if I don't have that money available right now, but I have access to this capital, I can use that as a down payment temporarily, and then they'll owner finance it. And then within 3 to 6 months at the least, but sometimes up to a year, you can refinance it into an actual bank and pay them out completely. So that's been very it's been very promising to me. Now you'll watch people on Bigger Pockets, and they do this. You'll hear story after story after story of people doing this. And in my own experience, the opportunities are lining up just as they say they would. So I just haven't jumped on any of these opportunities yet, but it's something we're definitely looking at doing. My wife.
Well, there's all kinds of ways. Like you said, you can find owner financing, which is harder. It's harder to find owner financing, but it's harder only when that owner is looking for buying another property, because they're looking at getting as much capital as they can, either through complete sale or a big enough down payment that their other bank that's lending for their new house or their new property, so they're selling maybe to put that capital somewhere else. Now, if you do find someone that says, hey, that property is in a great location. So here's an example. The property that I had in Palo Alto, it was about 3,000 square foot. It had 3 big bedrooms. In each bedroom, I knew that I could put 4 adult-sized bunk beds in there. So 3 bedrooms times 4 was 12 bunk beds. And then 2 of the rooms were big enough to where I could put two regular beds inside of those. I got an agreement on this $3 million property. As far as its market value was $3 million. The rent was going to be $7,000 but per month, but I ended up paying $8,000 for them to give me permission to sublet and be master tenant. They signed with me so that I could be master tenant. And then once I was master tenant, I was able to put it on Airbnb. I was able to market it on my websites saying, hey, this is for startups only. If you are looking for a business, if you're looking to find a co-founder, if you're looking for a programmer, if you're in the tech space and you need to go visit Stanford or VC meetings and things like that, this is the place for you, right? And I partnered with a different guy that was doing something like that called Startup Embassy. So we got all of their overflow. But what I'm saying is, if you're creative and if you basically give enough capital up front where they don't feel that they're at risk, I think I put a down payment that typically the down payment would have been first month, which would have been $8,000. But I put a down payment, or not down payment, I put my security at 20 grand. Because I put it at 20 grand, they were super cool with me having 15 people housed, basically. And my rent, I think each person paid between $50 to $60 per night. So I made like 22,000 per month with an overhead of about $8,000 per month. So you can do creative things without ever owning the property itself.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. I know we're in a very big tourism area. We've got very nearby to us, we've got a very large national park with some pretty neat ruins. And so we get, I mean, probably close to 2 million visitors a year. And most of them are actually from Europe, which is really interesting. But there's a small subsect of real estate investors here in this area that they'll actually lease out a place with the understanding with the owner that, hey, we're not living here, we're re-renting it out, so we're going to sublease it to others, and then they run a Airbnb out of it. They furnish it and run an Airbnb, and they arbitrage it that way. So they never even actually own the land, they never own the property, but they're still deriving a cash flow out of it just by maintaining it and rotating new customers in and out.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So I have a friend, his name is Sean Rakadich. He also has a channel, a YouTube channel. He's very, very popular now, called Airbnb Automated. So if you go to Airbnb Automated, I think now he has around 100 properties, and he's mostly in Texas. Like he's Dallas and Philadelphia and a couple other places. But if you go to Airbnb Automated, he basically has, he does about 10-minute long different episodes, and he walks people through, you only need about $3,000, maybe $5,000 to get started in housing arbitrage, which basically, when you start out, you might talk to a property management at like a condo or a townhouse complex or something like that. And you'll need enough furniture. So you need to basically be able to get the furniture, and either you're buying the furniture or you're financing furniture. And that doesn't take that much if you have reasonable personal credit or business credit or however you're going to get started. And then, basically he shows how you ROI and how you basically determine what the market is and if you can ROI in a particular market. So if you're looking at like arbitrage opportunities in the rental spaces of Airbnb and things like that, then Airbnb Automated, he's really good. He's got great content. And I recently introduced him, like he was saying he was going to go to Colombia, Medellin, because he's looking outside. This was before COVID. And I had made lots of friends in Colombia because they came to Puerto Rico talking about some real estate stuff they were going to do there. And I know people that have between 150 and 200 properties in Colombia, rental property. And so when he was saying that, I said, hey, have you talked to Sam, this guy named Sam and a guy named Rich? Have you talked to them? And then he went to, he's got like 3 or 4 episodes while he's in Colombia talking to my friends in Colombia. So you can look outside of the United States as far as opportunities. And when you're looking at the current COVID market, realize that right now, individual 1-bedroom kinds of things in a business environment are probably more risky to you to try to arbitrage. So a lot of the property that's in Silicon Valley really is not that great of an Airbnb opportunity the way it had been before COVID, because a lot of people are working from home, they're remote working, they're getting stipends and money from their employers to actually set up home offices. So you don't see that they're traveling necessarily to business-centric places. However, that same market, those same people that now are enabled to remote work, and they typically have the support from their IT kind of companies to remote work, they are looking at places like you're in, which is, hey, maybe instead of being a 2 or 3 or a day or a week or a long weekend, or maybe just a short ski trip or whatever, they're deciding that they'll rent Airbnb places for months on end. And it becomes a great opportunity for people that have it in these kind of vacation locations, or they say, how can I house people in Hawaii? And you have fewer turnover when you have a longer market. So Sean on Airbnb Automated is excellent about being able to point people towards where the new opportunities over the next 2 to 3 years are developing.
That's cool. So I'm going to give you guys, that just made me think. I'm going to give you guys, if you guys decide to do something like this, watch his buddy Sean's information, his show, his content. But I'm going to tell you guys something right now. I was the highest paid Aaron's sales manager that I know up to date, even still to date. It was owned by a private franchisee, and we're in an area where the absolute largest, number 1 and number 2, and I think we were we were in the top 10 where we're at, but top 1 and 2 are very close to where we live. And while I was there, I learned this, and if it helps you guys at all, furnish for super cheap, just remember anything that's on the floor, they can automatically give you 20% off. Whatever the price is, you can always go down 20% from there. And if it's been pre-leased before and brought back to the store, you can go down 40%. Aaron's, I know you hate me for it, but I just want you guys to know you guys can get furniture for cheap if you're willing to go for the pre-lease stuff. Say, I know you can go, this has been pre-leased before, I know you can go down 40% from this, and I'm not walking it, but I'm not walking out of here paying any more than 40% less than what that tag says. But the good news is you're going to go ahead and get a whole house full of furniture out of me. So you can negotiate that with the sales manager. You just don't even bother with the salesperson. Say, I just want to talk to the sales manager. I don't care if you get credit for the sale, but I want the sales manager.
That's amazing. I mean, again, that's really good knowledge. And, people think that takes a lot of capital to get started in something like this. And if you have reasonable credit closer to a 700 or something like that, even personally, and you're not running it through an entity, you're not at a point where you say, hey, I need to sink some money into forming an LLC and things like that, you can get going within the first 2 to 3 months and be maybe by the third month, you'd be completely in the black. So if you had financed your furniture at 40% less on errands, and it's on a payment plan or whatever, you can get, and it's, that typically means that it's also insured. So you might want to look at what your insurance coverage is in case a tenant damages something. But usually you can roll out of that within 6 months into maybe property, or maybe reinvest into your company of arbitrage by buying furniture or buying out if they give you an opportunity through errands to buy out the existing lease or whatever that they're doing with the short-term rental stuff. So you can go through these processes. And again, Sean covers a lot of that kind of stuff. And he says, your real cost versus your real income. And if you document those things reasonably well, then you're investable, regardless of if you form an LLC or not. You can find other partners that says, hey, if you can help me pay off the furniture, that's your buy-in. And then I can split a percentage of the income, right? So you can find, other people that want to expand. When I was 13 or 14, my dad started charging me rent, and he started charging me, really cheap rent, like $50 a month or whatever. It was really cheap. But he started saying, you got to come up with the money. You got to figure out how to make the money. So I started out with, like most kids in the South, just get a lawnmower and go cut some yards. You cut 3 or 4 yards and you can make your rent, right? It's that kind of thing or whatever.
Yep.
And I did that until I got tired of doing that. And then I started hiring my friends, hey, if I go get the gig, if I get the contract, if the little old lady likes my charm, she's gonna, sign up, and then you'll just cut, every week you'll cut her yard. So lawn service is one of those things you can do very fast. Rental arbitrage is one of those things you can do crazy fast. There's a lot of stuff that's just in the delivery business, and I'm not talking about Instacart and things like that, but there's a lot of stuff just in the delivery business. I have a friend of mine that makes, on average, I would say that it's not on average. I would say that 5 days out of a week, he works 7 days a week, but 5 days out of the week, he makes $1,000 a day. And he does it just because he actually financed a pickup truck. And then he bought a trailer to tow things around to go get stuff. And you wouldn't believe how many people want to pick something up at Home Depot or at Lowe's or whatever it is, especially when they're locked in their house right now. And they pre-order it, they do it online or whatever it might be, as far as these big distribution points for stuff like that. And he just makes 3 or 4 loads in a day and he makes $1,000 just in doing delivery costs.
Oh, I 100% believe it. So you guys, we're not telling you to go out and do this stuff. What we're doing is we're trying to spawn the thought of where are the arbitrage opportunities, where are the inefficiencies in the market that I can take advantage of, that I can make some extra cash. And I mean, obviously I want you to buy Hex with it, but that's not necessarily the intent, but to think outside the box when it comes to creating something for yourself. Hey, you guys, I hate to do this. RG3 has completely been landlocked by traffic right now, so he's not going to be able to make it. I got to go pick up a kid. So what I do want to do is I want to touch base real quick and remind everyone to hit the follow button here on Dlive. Make sure you follow at RG3 on Twitter, and go ahead and start spamming my chats, guys. I'm going to pick 3 names so that we can get you on the wheel. So please, guys, start now. So
it doesn't let me go so fast. I'm trying to get that fucker too.
Well,
me.
Let me see if I can turn on my cam. I don't want anyone to think that I'm cheating. So give me a sec. My cam is off and on right now. Okay, go, guys. Now, Hex.
I like that they're typing spam. That's kind of funny. I started doing that too. Spam.
Crypto Vince got bunga 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 here. So
spam. It won't let me do any more spam.
It won't let you spam anymore.
K is in there. He's like Hex. His Hex.
Motley Investor.
Balls. I'm saying balls.
Balls. And Into the Fire.
There you go.
All right, guys. Help us get. Make sure all of you guys, if you guys have a Twitter, if you got a Telegram, you've got any other social media, make sure to hit that yellow or the white arrow at the top, and that gives you a ref code that will give you lemons if someone comes and joins the stream. And make sure to plaster that all over your social graces so that you can get not only some lemons, but also help us hit the 1,000, because we are not giving this million Hex away until we have 1,000 followers. We're at 521. So we've gotten about 30 this week alone. And that's fantastic, guys. And we've got 92 viewers now. We actually went up viewers, and maybe they heard that we were giving stuff away. So, well,
hey, you might talk to RG. Is I know that it's 1 million, but I think that maybe if it hasn't hit by the day before big payday, I think he should stake it and then still give the 1 million away.
Oh, it's a brilliant idea. I don't know if he has control of it yet, does he?
Well, I mean, maybe he's going to get 1 million from the sponsor, but yeah, if he did have it, maybe again, not to say that it's, so maybe we can have like a community poll if it hasn't hit 1,000 by that time, and maybe it could be something like make it 2,000 for 2 million, and just continue the, if it gets closer to BPD in 50 days. Yep. And it doesn't hit 1,000, maybe the community votes get 2 million for 1,000 and just rolls over, because whoever's sponsoring that 1 million, they can just stake it, and then the same thing the next day they can just give over the 2 million for the contest.
Yep, absolutely. Well, hey guys, I hate to do this. I'm already in the doghouse. I got to get going, and we'll talk to you guys later.
Laters.